This video is sponsored by Squarespace, but I'll tell you more about them later. When I was a kid, I used to take a pencil and I would move my fingers along it until I found, the center of gravity. I was a lot better when I had smaller fingers, I think. But yeah, and then I really enjoyed balancing things, and that fascination hasn't really gone away. There's something really calming for me about balancing things, and I don't often have time to balance things, and my life is a little bit unbalanced at the moment, so I'm feeling this like pull towards balancing things. Anyway, for those of you who are new here, my name is Jono, and I do pencil drawings. I've been doing it for quite a long time now, and I really love it. I'm sharing my studio with some friends and family next week. I did this last year as well. There's a video we made about it. It was really fun. It was really intense, really stressful. Everyone had a really difficult time. And so I think we all decided that we needed to remind ourselves of that trauma and do it again this year. So we're going to do it. And hopefully it's not going to be as bad as last year. I think we're going to scale it down quite a bit, maybe not invite as many people and just more use it as a event to show some of the works that are in the studio at the moment before they get shipped off, and also play around with some exciting sculpture ideas and hopefully get them ready by next week. I've made this one, which I'm really excited about. It's like a super heavy concrete thing with rocks in it, and I'm worried that it scratches the drawing, but I think it might be cool to have it in the background. So this is a kinetic sculpture, meaning it just uses kinetic energy to move. And if I can get as little resistance on it as possible, it'll move for a really long time. There's something incredibly satisfying about that for me. So in this time of turmoil, I've been really drawn towards balancing things and efficiency. And I think that that's kind of what these sculptures mean. And so I've been just doing a bunch of things to rocks.
Yes!
And it's been really, really fun. And I found it incredibly cathartic, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that with everyone next week. But it's a lot of work. Also, this concrete slab that I'm using at the bottom of the sculpture as the base was repurposed from the dry ice chute with the elephant that was in the previous video. And it works perfectly for the sculpture, which is a happy coincidence. But I think that that's also just a product of having a creative space where there's a lot of play. You tend to have these totems or these objects around you which will inevitably somehow speak to each other. And I think it's quite important to consciously cultivate those kinds of spaces as well. I think that's how ideas are formed and creating these kinds of connections. So I mean, that's a very small example of that happening, but it happens often in the space. There's something really cool about the sculpture when it's close to something valuable as well. So when we originally put it down, I put it really close to the TV, and I wanted to just make sure it wasn't going to hit the TV. So I got it as close as possible without hitting the TV and spun it. And the next rotation, everyone's faces kind of like dropped a bit as it got close to the TV, and all of us had this like visceral reaction to the rock swinging by the TV screen. It felt like, even though we knew it wasn't going to hit the TV screen, it was just too close for comfort, and that was really interesting. There was something cool there to try and mess with and play with. Simon was saying that it kind of gave the feeling of when you go over a bump and you like your stomach is kind of just waiting or suspended. So it was really cool to have a piece of art that could evoke that kind of feeling, and I'm definitely going to want to explore that and see where that goes. I'm also really into lights. I care a lot about the quality of light. The refresh rate is something that can often bother me if the light's refresh rate is really low. Also, the temperature is something I'm really sensitive to. There's also the harshness of the light, so whether it's coming from a small light source or a nice large diffused light source, all these things play a huge role in mood, and I'm really interested in creating moods, especially in my environments. So I need more lights in the studio. The lights in the bathroom are fused and I don't know how to change a light bulb, but I know how to make a light bulb. And so I've started combining two of my passions, lights and rocks. So the idea is to just take some of my favorite rocks and put a light inside and use the power cord as a kind of a rope to suspend the rock. And hopefully with some tinkering and some being really pedantic about design, these lights will end up being quite special. There's something very cool about the like harshness of the rocks and the softness and warmth of the lights. So there's a relationship there which I'm also really enjoying exploring. Yeah, once again, something that I need to have done by next week, which there's a lot of work ahead of me. Oh yeah, also the drawings as well. So there are a couple drawings in the studio at the moment that are not finished yet, and I have no idea when I'm going to find time to finish those. I'm quite keen to spend the rest of this evening actually working on the one behind me and just putting on a good audiobook and getting lost in the drawing. I've been feeling a bit worried about this drawing. I had this idea to have these two figures in this dance together, and again striking a sort of balance, which seems to really be a theme for me right now. The composition felt really beautiful, but once the figures were drawn, there was an emptiness to it, and I felt like it needed some other kind of gesture or movement in it. And so I've always wanted to draw anti-rocks or clouds, and I felt that the dry ice experiments really evoked a like ethereal, soft, cloudy kind of atmosphere. So that became partly a shoot for this drawing as well. I've really struggled with the textures, drawing mists and clouds, and the dry ice shoot ended up being really informative for me to try and understand how it works and how it flows, and a bunch of different references to see the shapes. I actually started keeping a bit of a journal of cloud shapes, almost the way that you learn how to write by repeating the same thing and writing A, B, B, B. I identified patterns in the wisps that kind of repeated themselves, so I'm trying to repeat those patterns. So when I organically try and draw this, there's an alphabet almost that's available to me. I'm having a ton of fun just using an eraser and working into the drawing and creating these wisps, and I'm really hoping that it conveys the mood that I'm trying to get across. Also that it gets done in time for the show next week. Cool. So that's what's happening in the studio at the moment. I'm pretty keen to try and do this more regularly, like to have a bit of a weekly update. There's been a ton of stuff going on for the last couple of months, and I feel so out of touch, and I haven't had time to film my work really. And I think this will just be a really lovely way to regularly share what's going on. So let me know if you're interested in seeing the more like day-to-day or week-to-week kind of updates of the studio space and the practice. Yeah, I'd really appreciate the feedback. I recently just redid my website as well. If you guys are interested, you can check that out. But speaking of websites, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. I have been working with them for a couple of years now, and they played a huge role in my career, not only in sponsoring these videos and helping me maintain this channel, but more importantly, early on in my career, I was looking for a way to showcase my work, make it easy for collectors to find me and get in touch with me. And I didn't have time to learn HTML and to try and build a beautiful, reliable website. So when I found Squarespace, it just kind of solved all of those problems effortlessly. I never had to patch or upgrade anything. I could register a domain with them, set up an online store, and most importantly, I could design a portfolio and show my work the way that I wanted to. Also, every time I got stuck, their amazing support team helped me out instantly. So if you're looking at building a website, give Squarespace a try. And if you decide that you love them, use the offer code and get 10% off your first purchase. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, or if you enjoy this kind of style of videos, I guess. I'm not really sure how it's going to come across or how it's received, so your feedback is going to be super helpful. As always, thanks for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.